This week's animation puts the hammer into Hammer and Bolter, so we know what Hammer and Bolter's all about, so we'll know exactly what to expect. Or will we? I'll talk about that later on in my full review. After discovering that I could order my Warhammer Plus gift model last week, I ran a quick poll to see what you guys would or have picked. It looks like the Assassin molds will be taking an absolute pounding, with the Mega Boss molds getting off lightly, with an 86-14 landslide. 40k is of course more popular, and up until recently, Warhammer Plus has been pretty AOS phobic, so it doesn't really come as a big surprise. What I can say though is that the Assassin model is absolutely fantastic, and I'm happy I subbed. There, I've said it, I'm going to take some flack for it, but I'm really happy I subbed to Warhammer Plus. The model makes up for a lot of it. The TV part of it over the last year has been pretty poor, let's face it, but the model makes up for a ton of that. Some people have even made the full cost of their subscription back by selling their model on, which is pretty cool. You may have noticed that I've changed this from a weekly format to every second week, and that is because when there's a week without an animation, there's not that much to talk about, so if we do 2 weeks at a time, there's a lot more to talk about, and it's a bit more interesting for you, I think. So let's start the reviews. Warhammer Vault is absolutely packed with content. I'll just show you here how much stuff there is. There is an absolute ton. It's a great resource. Over the last 2 weeks there have been 3 White Dwarfs and 2 Imperial Armour books, part 1 and 2 of the Siege of Vrax. The books are the usual fodder, a lot of background and a lot of inspiring colour schemes whispering to me, start a Red Scorpions chapter. Go on, a full chapter. Just do it. And I wish they would shut up because I can't afford it. As you might know, I'm a big fan of these books. I'm a big fan of the universe in general, so having these all so easily accessible is fantastic for me. I love it. 2 of the White Dwarves are from the end of 2009 and the start of 2010, and the other one is a more recent one featuring Beastmen. The pattern is definitely set. If we get older White Dwarves, we get 2 of them. If we get a newer one, we get 1. The big headlines from December 2009 were the Fortress of Redemption for Dark Angels and the Space Marine and Orc Mega Forces. In the Space Marine one, for £100 you would get 30 Marines, 2 tanks and a Dreadnought, which you just wouldn't see today. There was a curious thing, the Orc and the Space Marine Mega Force were £100 each, but the Space Marine one was €150 and the Orc one was €170, so I don't know how that happens. The January 2010 issue features Tyranids, with a new plastic model for Trigons, as well as loads of other plastic kits for the Tyranids, plus new plastic Legion of the Damned models, and that got me thinking, did the Legion of the Damned ever cross the Rubicon Primaris? Can they even do that? Or are they just these tiny wee marines that appear and they're all scary and they kill everything really easily? The battle report last week was from Warcry, and it was Nick Baton with his Thunderstrike Stormcast, and Ben with his Cruel Boys. I feel like we've almost seen this before. One of the early AOS battle reports was Stormcast v Cruel Boys when Dominion launched, and these are the same forces. I know it's a different system, I know it's Warcry instead of AOS, but we've never seen anything from Blood Bowl, from Adeptus Titanicus, from Aeronautica Imperialis, so surely they should cover those systems before they then cover the same armies essentially again. It's a wee bit boring, you don't really see anything new in it. It was kind of tied to this week's Hammer and Bolter, but not really. There's just so much that we've still got to see that going over the same ground again just seems a bit nah. There was a really cool bit with Archie the Griffhound however, so it does still have some entertainment value. Loremasters was great this week with Alex Doddy telling us about the Luna Wolves who then became the Sons of Horus. I did know all this stuff already, but it's still great to have a summary all in one place. If they do one of these for each legion in the Horus Heresy, it'll be absolutely amazing. GW have really stepped it up when it comes to the Horus Heresy with the new box set that's coming out and all the new plastic tanks and all that kind of stuff, so it looks like they're continuing that kind of quality here as well. It is a bit of a tricky one though, because beginners would get the most out of this, but then beginners might not have read the Horus Heresy books, so this might contain a lot of spoilers for those people. Like, I know after 20 or 30 years you can't say they're spoilers, but someone new to the hobby might not know that if they watch this then they'll have the whole of the Horus Heresy spoiled for them, so maybe there should be a wee spoiler warning on it. On the other hand, if you don't want the lore spoiled, don't watch lore videos. I'm sure almost everyone in the hobby knows how the Horus Heresy ends, but there might be a few stories in there that people newer to the hobby might not be aware of and they might be spoiled for them. I know Loremasters isn't as in-depth as other channels, but I really enjoy the format and the delivery now. I didn't at the start of Warhammer Plus, but it's come to grow on me. It gives us a great deal of content within 30 minutes and it's a good watch and listen. I do hope Wade will be back at some point, not to replace Alex but to complement him, So maybe Wade could have one week and Alex could have one the next week. Or maybe, this is a wee shocking idea, you could have 2 in 1 week, one with each presenter, one for 40k, one for AOS. It's just a thought. Louise was back in masterclass and it was a tutorial on scorching effects and muzzle burn, just in time for all these Horus Heresy weapons that we're all going to be painting. The end result was great and it seems relatively easy to do. It did also help that the weapon casings were painted, because sometimes when they're demonstrating effects on masterclass, they just have a black undercoated model with only the bit that they're concentrating on painted, and you can't really appreciate the full effect. So this was a step up, I think. So now on to Hammer and Bolter, which, as we all know, is a bit serious and pretty poorly animated. Well, not anymore. In a big shock to me, we've just had one of my favourite Warhammer Plus animated episodes of anything, and it blinking well had to be Age of Sigmar, didn't it? It features Hamilcar Bear Eater, a Stormcast, and he is one of my favourite Stormcast characters now. Not that I have much reference, but I will be trying to find out as much as I can about this character because he's just great. The Oryx are about to sack a Sigmarite city, and all that's standing between them and their prize is 100 Stormcast. So obviously the Stormcast are going to fight, but there's not much chance of them winning. So just before the Stormcast deploy, this lone guy, Hamilcar Bear Eater, turns up.
I'm Hamilcar.
And declares that he can sort out the whole thing single-handedly. The Stormcast higher-ups don't really believe him.
Hamilcar?
But they also think there's not really much downside in letting him try. Either he stops it, which would be great, or he dies trying, in which case original plan just goes ahead. So they let him try, and that is the basis of the whole episode. What comes after that is funny, but it manages not to be stupid at the same time, and it's some of the best animation we've seen in Hammer and Bolter from anything at all. It just seems to have more frames. The quality of the drawings, if that's the right term, seems a lot better. All in all, it was a more enjoyable watch than your average Hammer and Bolter. Hamilcar also has a bit of a Stormlord from Guardians of the Galaxy thing going on. He thinks everyone should have heard about him, should have heard about his legend throughout all the realms.
Hamilcar, Bear Eater.
But no one has, so that was quite funny as well. I just think this episode was handled perfectly. While I wouldn't like all my episodes to be funny or light-hearted, this pulls it off with aplomb. I would love to know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you haven't had enough of me yet, I'd recommend watching this video next. Thanks for watching, happy hobbying, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.